very good afternoon to you, and many thanks for joining us on the KTN News Desk on this 19th day of July 2016. Always a pleasure to have you tuned in. My name is Akisa Wandera. Now, the chairman of the Anti-graft agency EACC, Philip Kinisu, has said he will not resign over criminal investigations against him. Companies associated with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission head are being investigated by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the Assets Recovery Agency, and the Kenya Revenue Authority over their dealings with the National Youth Service (NYS). Kinisu says that the claims against him were orchestrated by individuals being investigated for corruption by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
In those short 6 months, while I've been in office at the Commission, at least 4 issues have arisen, which I categorize as corruption fighting back viciously. And I would like to describe these issues for you and through you to the public, so that this information provides context when the public reads or hears about EACC, or indeed me, within media reports. First of all, let's cast our minds back to the day 20th of January 2016, to be exact. On that day, which was barely a month after I'd come into office, someone fired a high-caliber shotgun, which was fitted with a silencer, into my private office in Hurlingham. Apparently, this fire was shot from a distance of approximately 300 meters. Some of you who know guns will know that this was a sniper. Now, fortunately, on that occasion, no one was hurt. And in the words of one of the dailies which covered the event, it was headlined, "That was a warning shot." The matter was reported to the police, and as we speak now, investigations are still underway. I was shaken, I felt intimidated, but I resolved to soldier on in the service of my country. My fellow commissioners have been very supportive, and we've continued to work as if such risks are part of everyday life. The second issue, you may be aware of this, that the EACC Act was amended in 2015 to provide for the vetting of staff at the Commission. The objective of that vetting was to give the Commission an opportunity to assess existing competencies compared to what is required to drive a new dispensation, and to ensure that the staff we have going forward are aligned to what is required to deliver an effective fight against corruption. The vetting would have been an opportunity to weed out any individuals deemed not fit to serve the new organization. Also, that exercise would have facilitated a comprehensive identification of technical interventions which are necessary to jumpstart the fight against corruption. However, as we speak now, that staff vetting exercise has stalled with the help of individuals working with a civil society organization. So the efforts of my team to re-engineer that organization is now stalled. We wait for various issues to be resolved before we can proceed. I see this, again, as a situation that has come about through the agency of corruption fighting back. Third, on or about 6th of July this year, we're talking about a few days ago, it was established that I am under physical surveillance, which is unauthorized. I have no reason to see why anybody would be interested in my movement, or indeed who I meet, who I talk to, in social places and the like. My resigning would be setting a terrible precedent, because what would happen tomorrow is that anybody can go out there and fabricate any allegation to serve their interests whenever they see a public official acting in a way that threatens their interest. Consider this. Someone could come up and next time say that I, as chairman of EACC, am a poacher. Or I, as chairman of EACC, am a diamond smuggler. Or in this case, I, as chairman of EACC, am associated with an institution that has money laundered 5 billion.
Well, that was earlier on in the day, the EACC Chairman Philip Kinisu giving his side of the story with the alleged corruption allegations he is currently facing. And our reporter Mrimi Mwangi was present during that press conference. So let's now link up with our reporter Mrimi Mwangi, who is joining us from the city center for more information about what was said by the chairman there. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsdesk, Mrimi. And among the claims that Philip Kinisu is making there is that he's pegging his wars on those that are being investigated for corruption. Is corruption fighting back in this case?
Good afternoon, Akisa. Well, it seems so from the statement by Mr. Philip Kinisu. He says that the probe that is ongoing, he has not in any way dealt in corruption or fraud for that matter, and that even when he applied for that position at the EACC, he knew at the back of his mind that the company that is in question here, the family company, EACC Limited, had done legitimate business with not only the NYS but also the various government departments as well as the private sector. And he says that much as there's the investigation into alleged claims that his company benefited to a tune of 35 million shillings from that controversial tender with the NYS, he says that he knows the business was legitimate. He showed us the copies of the tender documents was with regards to the drilling of boreholes in Kapenguria. But of course, that will be subject to the determination by the multi-agency team that has now been constituted on instructions from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to probe the matter. Of course, now this happening barely 6 months since Kinisu took over as the chairperson of the EACC, Akisa.
Well, will the EACC in any way be part of the investigations that will take place, of course, with regards to their chairman, Philip Kinisu?
Now, prior to the directions coming from the DPP, Akisa, the EACC has been probing the matter from internally at the EACC. But of course, from what we gathered from that press conference, Kinisu had been put at the periphery as the investigations continued. And even now, as the multi-agency bringing together the Assets Recovery Unit, as well as the Directorate of Criminal Investigation and the Kenya Revenue Authority take over, any consultation that is going to be happening between the multi-agency team and the EACC will be excluding Kinisu, who is an interested party in that dispute by virtue of the fact that he was a director in that company as at the time when that contentious transaction was undertaken. But of course, he insists, he is insisting that he won't be resigning or stepping aside by virtue of the fact that he won't be giving any instructions to that multi-agency team. Even in the event that the instructions have to come from the EACC, he won't directly be involved in those investigations. And on the ground of that, Mr. Kinisu has said that he won't be resigning or stepping aside even as the investigations continue. But of course, the question that will probably be put to Mr. Kinisu when the investigations take shape is the timelines upon which that transaction happened and the time when he became the chairperson of the EACC. You remember that the transactions with the NYS, the contentious ones, summing up that scam of 791 million, happened between October 2014 and November 2015. And Kinisu himself applied for that position by the deadline, which was 7th October 2015, and took over the position in January this year, but still served in that capacity until the 19th of April, when he tendered his resignation as the director of the company that is now subject to that investigation. So quite a lot to be dug up by the team that is going to be undertaking the investigation. Akisa.
All right, and definitely this is a story that we will be keeping tabs on. Our reporter Murimi Mwangi there joining us from the City Central Studios. Thank you very much, Murimi, for that. And let's now get over to Parliament, where the Kenya chapter of International Commission of Jurists, ICJ, together with Mkenya Daima, say the next composition of IEBC should be leaner, with just about 5 commissioners, and making their representations before the Joint Parliamentary Select Committee. ICJ was categorical that current IEBC commissioners should be prevailed upon to go home for lack of public confidence to preside over credible polls in August 2017. Our senior parliamentary affairs reporter Patrick Amimo attended the session and now joins us via phone for more details on what the ICJ and Kenya Daima, what kind of presentation or recommendations these two teams made today in Parliament. Good afternoon, Patrick. Many thanks for joining us. Yesterday, we saw the clergy recommend that there should be, so to speak, a soft landing for the IEBC commissioners. Did these two teams agree with that, and what were the other recommendations that they made in their reports?
Thank you, Akisa. In fact, the process is still, the sitting is still on. The ICJ, Kenya Daima, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance are still making their representations before the Joint Select Committee on Electoral Reforms. It is a process that will also take a better part of the day. And as you rightly said, that indeed they have suggested there is a Kenya Daima and ICJ Kenya chapter say that IEBC commissioners should be a lean commission. They are proposing maximum 5 commissioners, and this should serve on part-time basis. Unlike currently where we have 9 commissioners serving full-time, they want this fresh team to serve part-time, maximum 5, and again, the Secretariat should run the whole show, unlike the current situation where we have IBC commissioners and the Secretariat doing almost one of the similar thing. The other thing, like ICJ Kenya is very categorical, and once the ISAC-led team to go home honorably, and they say that already the public confidence opinion polls that have come out have indicated that the public lacks confidence on IECJ since the 2013 elections. The public confidence in the commission has been going down, and the only thing to do for the public interest and for the sake of the country, then Isaac Hassan and his team should look at it and consider going home honorably with the negotiated part maybe by Parliament or the government to that effect. That is an issue that also the Kenya Daima is supporting, because they say, like ICJ says, that if you go by the section Article 251 of the Constitution, which allows for the formation of a tribunal, it will be a long process, and then it might affect with the August 8th 2017 election, which is a date when Kenya is expected to go to the next polls. And they say if we go the tribunal way, then it will mean that until May 2017, that's when a new commission is expected to be in office, which will interfere with the election date of August 2017. The other issue they've looked at is they say that IEBC has been accused of lacking a principal voter register, a matter that they feel that should expose their incompetence, and which allowed maybe the 2013 elections to be to have claims of rigging being made by the opposition on that particular date, and also add to that the failure of the BVR kits. They say this is a serious indictment on the commission, either for lack of sins of omission or commission. Akisa?
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. We'll definitely be linking up with you later on for more updates on what is happening in Parliament, especially with regards to the IEBC. And Patrick Amimo there is joining us from the parliamentary buildings. So now let's move on. Education. Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i has told the Senate Committee on Education that 68 schools have been hit by arson this year. Dr. Matiang'i blames failure to take action against perpetrators of for the increasing cases of the unrest. He says since 2007, 317 cases have been reported, but less than 20% have been prosecuted successfully. He said all cases of arson will be investigated and those involved will be prosecuted.
In these arson cases we have in the country, only two parts of the school are affected: the dining halls and the offices. Are people banning schools to avoid accountability so that documents and records are burnt in offices to avoid accountability? That's why I'm saying the challenges we have are related to institutionalized impunity. People have lived this way and done things this way, and when we face this crisis, Mr. Chairman, we start blaming each other. It is the teachers who are wrong, it is the ministry that is wrong, it is the parents. The truth of the matter is that we are facing a situation we need to address comprehensively. Each one of us has got something to do.
All right, let's now take a short break. Do not go too far. We still have a lot to land up for you, including sports news on KTN News Desk. Welcome back. You are watching KTN News Desk. Of course, we're starting with that UNCTAD conference, the 6-day United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, commonly referred to as UNCTAD 14, has entered day 3. President Uhuru Kenyatta officially opened the 14th session of the conference on Sunday in Nairobi. The conference is bringing together more than 7,000 delegates from around the globe, and it is aimed at shaping policy debates to ensure that domestic policies and international actions in trade contribute to sustainable development. Senior anchor and business reporter Abi Agina has been at the KICC since Sunday. Let's now join him as he will be speaking to Dr. Chris Kiptoo, who is the Principal Secretary of Trade. Abi.
Well, many thanks, Kisa. Well, as you've rightly said, the UNCTAD 14th conference is on the third day. A lot of talks currently going on. Today, the focus really has been on the least developed countries and how can countries work together in trying to level the playing field when it comes to trade across the borders. And joining me right now is Dr. Chris Kiptoo, who is the Principal Secretary in charge of trade at the State Department. Many thanks, Dr. for making time. A busy day, a busy week for Kenya. Perhaps just bring us up to speed on some of the key areas of focus that have transpired since today began.
Thank you, Abby. Let me first say so far, so good. We started this conference on Friday with the Global Commodities Forum that ended on Saturday.
Yes.
And a lot of things were discussed, especially on global commodities and how to leverage on especially for countries that depend on oil and commodities. And then on Sunday, we officially opened the forum. It was opened by His Excellency the President and a number of key leaders. And on Monday, which was yesterday, we started with World Leaders Summit, where our leaders, the President of Namibia and President Uhuru Kenyatta and a few other leaders engaged the business leaders across the world on topical issues. Now, so today, is actually the ministerial debates
All right.
going on a number of topical issues.
Okay. Speaking about the ministerial debates, what are our expectations as a country when it comes to key outcomes for the ministerial debates?
Actually, we are hoping to come up with what is called a Nairobi Declaration. And this is, we are happy that we are hosting this conference 40 years later. We remember we hosted another conference, the fourth conference of UNCTAD in 1976. So this time around, as you know, UNCTAD was started to develop, to address trade and development issues for developing countries.
Correct.
And last year, we had 4 key issues that happened, key declarations. The first one is the Agenda 2030, which is on sustainable development goals, which is 17 sustainable development goals. And then we had the Addis Ababa Action Plan, which looked at financing, ways of financing to ensure that we achieve MDGs. And then we also had the Paris Declaration on Copenhagen. And finally, the MC10, which we hosted here in Nairobi. So this time, the focus here is from decision to action, where we're focusing on how do we implement the decisions that have been made to make sure that by 2030, the world will be eradicated of poverty.
All right.
Yes.
Because something still related to this conference, but out of it as well, it's in relation to the economic partnership agreement. Kenya was supposed to sign these agreements yesterday, but reports coming to us is that we didn't sign. And where does this leave us as a country? And also Tanzania has also refused to sign because of Brexit. What's going to happen now that we haven't signed? Is Kenya likely to go it alone?
Abby, I think we only intended to sign this the EPA here in Nairobi because a number of stakeholders were going to be here. But actually, the Sectoral Council of Ministers of Trade had agreed that this would be done in August. We still have time until 1st of October. So I just want to reassure you that we are working around the clock to make sure that the document is signed. So we should not panic at this stage. Yes, we have Tanzania having expressed its desire not to sign at this stage, but we're in discussions, and the entire leadership of Kenya is engaged.
So things have not stopped?
Not yet. No, people should not panic.
All right. Well, many thanks there. We're speaking to Dr. Chris Kipto. Of course, we'd have had a lengthier interview, but you can join us at 2 p.m. where we'll be speaking to other delegates who are attending this particular conference. We'll be engaging tax experts on what expectations they have, civil society, people investing in these particular issues, and also giving you a perspective on what it stands for the ordinary mwananchi out of UNCTAD 14. Many thanks, Akisa. Back to you in studio.
All right, thank you very much, Abi. And of course, as he says, look for more news and updates on the UNCTAD conference at 2 p.m. on Business Today. But let's now get into sports. Widespread doping and manipulation of tests by Russian athletes and officials at the Sochi Olympics, overseen by the Ministry of Sport, was confirmed by the World Anti-Doping Agency on Monday, further fueling calls for a complete ban on the country from the Rio Olympic Games, according to the WADA's Independent Commission report, which was led by Canadian law professor and sports lawyer Richard McLaren. A Moscow laboratory protected Russian athletes during the 2014 Sochi Winter Games.